Hello, and welcome to Advanced PeopleSoft Administration, presented by our good friends at psadmin. PeopleSoft's Innovation Summit, Day 2. We're really excited. Just have a couple quick housekeeping notes for you. First of all, my name is Scott Lavery, and I am the head of marketing here at Appsian, and would certainly like to thank you for your participation today. And for those who are coming back from yesterday, thanks for joining us again. Everyone is on mute for this session, and it is being recorded, and we'll be sure to post all of the recordings for all the sessions on the registration landing page probably next week for free on-demand viewing as we move forward here. And the session today will be 45 minutes, and we will have limited time for Q&A. So we would encourage you to, if you have any questions, either reach out to the presenters directly. They'll be sharing their contact information, or you can go ahead and put questions in the questions section of the control panel. The presenters will see that and then can reach back out to you. So with that, I would like to turn things over to Dan and Kyle to begin today's presentation. Dan?
Hey, thanks, Scott. Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about PeopleSoft administration. Real quick, here's kind of what we're going to cover. We've got a number of fun topics we're going to hit. So we're going to talk about Elasticsearch and ACM and making sure Elasticsearch is configured properly. If you've been kind of watching the news and the releases, you can tell that Elasticsearch is kind of becoming now a core component of PeopleSoft. It's becoming just as important as your app server. So we're going to talk about managing that a little easier. We're going to talk about using this awesome tool that Kyle created called psadmin Plus. That's really useful for kind of day-to-day administration. And then we're going to talk about something brand new right here, something we call psadmin.io cloud operations. So we're going to save that for the end because that's the most exciting thing. Kyle, you want to explain for those who aren't familiar what psadmin.io is?
Sure. Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Scott. So at psadmin.io, we're basically trying to provide PeopleSoft and Oracle Cloud services with knowledge sharing and training first focus. So we really like to focus on, coming in to help you learn this stuff, and so you can kind of be able to do it after we leave, right? So we offer services. We have a conference, psadmin.conf. I know a number of you probably have attended that. We offer training, both live and on demand, virtually. We have a blog, a podcast, and a community, a great community over on, we've got a Slack group that we run, psadmin.io/community, if you wanted to check that out. We've got like over 800 PeopleSoft administrators in that community right now. So it's a great place to kind of get together and chat about PeopleSoft administration. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm a PeopleSoft architect. Also been doing a lot of work with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure right now. So I'm also a certified architect there. I've got multiple Oracle certifications. I'm a member of the Oracle ACE program, which Dan will talk about in a second here. I've got about over 13 plus years working with PeopleSoft and Oracle products. So a lot of experience. And again, really excited about this cloud stuff recently. So Dan, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Iverson as well. I'm also a PeopleSoft architect, do a lot of PeopleSoft administration. I've done a lot of development in the past as well. I like working on the back-end side of PeopleSoft. Also a Oracle Cloud professional architect like Kyle. We're both, again, Oracle ACEs, and I've been working with PeopleSoft for about 17 years now in a bunch of various different ways. If you're not familiar with the Oracle ACE program, real quickly, it's a program run by Oracle to kind of promote advocates for different Oracle technologies. So if you're looking for basically the experts within Oracle for different technologies, the ACE program's a great place to go. There's a number of PeopleSoft ACEs, and that number's been growing recently, which is really exciting as well. So if you want to learn more, you can head over here to and check out the Oracle ACE program. All right. Let's get into the meat of this session. ACM and Elasticsearch. If you're in this talk, or if you've been around PeopleSoft lately, you've probably heard of Elasticsearch. It's a search engine that PeopleSoft has selected to power a bunch of really cool things within PeopleSoft. More of you might not be familiar with what ACM is. So ACM stands for Automated Configuration Management. what the ACM does at a high level is it helps configure your database to work with different parts of PeopleSoft. So you can use the ACM to configure your integration broker. You can use it to configure your process scheduler configuration. So rather than having to go in through the PIA and navigate to a bunch of different pages, you can basically set up your configuration ahead of time, run the ACM, and it will do that configuration for you. The cool thing about the ACM is it leverages both SQL and people code. Now, a lot of these things that I talked about, you might be thinking, yeah, we have refresh scripts that do some of that stuff, and those are great. The advantage of ACM is that it can use people code to do configuration. So you can take the ACM a step beyond what your just regular SQL scripts can do. And I think the best example of this is the search framework plugins that are delivered with the ACM. So if you have a SQL script and you want to configure Elasticsearch, you can do things like set up your search instance, make sure your integration broker's in place, but you can't deploy your search definitions. You can't easily schedule a job to run and do a full build on your indexes. And that's something that the ACM plugin can do for you. You can not only configure your search instance or your search instance cluster, but you can also have it go and deploy and run a full build on your indexes with just a click of a button or a command line that you can run. So I can talk about this, but I think it's better just to kind of show you how this works. Whoops, and I skipped ahead a bunch. All right, we're gonna go ahead here. I have a finance image here. So this is image 37. And real quick, I kind of want to just show you, I just built this image and installed Elasticsearch. So we don't have our search instance configured at all. You can see here, this is the default values that are in here. You can see my callback properties are, generic. These aren't actually going to work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the search framework or create a search framework plugin using the ACM. So if you're unfamiliar with this, I'll show you. It's in finance here. You scroll all the way to the bottom, go to PeopleTools. We're going to scroll down some more. We're going to go to Automated Config Manager, ACM Templates, and then we're going to open up template definitions. There's a number of templates that are delivered here from PeopleSoft, so I'm going to open up this search template. And what you'll see here, we have kind of a grouping here of, these are our search plugins that we're going to do. And then I've added these 3 plugins. So this plugin here, ignore the SCS, that's just the name of it. It actually works with Elasticsearch, but we're gonna clean up deployment data. This is kind of cool. This plugin here, we can go look at the properties of how we configure it. And it basically takes, 3 little parameters. I want to do a cleanup operation. So what that means is it's going to, on the PeopleSoft side, undeploy any existing search definitions I might have. That's really useful after a refresh. If you have remote search groups set up, you can clean those as well. And then I just tell it which search instance I'm pointing it to. It's pretty cool. I can also have the ACM plugin configure a search instance for me. So I'm gonna go look at these properties here. There's a little more information in here, but the nice thing is when I define the search template, this is in the database. I can run this over and over and over. If I need to change a configuration, I can come in here, make a change and execute it, and then it'll persist. I don't have to go in and key in information every time I want to do this. And there's a couple of cool things here. In Elasticsearch, you can run a single node Elasticsearch instance to power PeopleSoft. But if you're looking in production or QA, you might want to have a cluster that's running it. So you have high availability, or maybe that's part of a DR strategy. And so one of the things you can do in here is you can change this 1 to a 3, and all of a sudden the fields will expand and you can actually define all of the nodes in this case, a 3-node cluster that are in there. Now, in the interest of time, I've gone ahead and populated all of this information here, with all of my host information and my callback information. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this, and we're going to skip this one for the moment. I'm going to execute my ACM plugin now with just the cleanup and the configure operation in place. So I'm going to go ahead and just click execute. And we're going to wait a minute here, or not even a minute, and our process is completed. So let's do this. I'm going to open up a new window, and let's go look at our search instance now. And we can see now it's configured. I have a little local instance I'm running this, and I can ping my Elasticsearch instance. We can see that my callback URL is now correct. So we've configured our search instance with just a click of a button. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's really nice. I'm going to take this a step further. Let's go back to our ACM template here. And you can see I have this deploy search definition plugin listed here. We're going to enable it now. And let's go look at the properties on this plugin. If I come in here, I can say, hey, there's my search instance that I'm creating. This selection type field, this is pretty cool. Right now, I'm saying I want to list the indexes that I want to deploy. There's another option here that is global, or all, sorry. And all means it will literally deploy every search index in your database. This is really useful for pies. If you want to test what some of the new PeopleSoft images has for search index and sample data, you can do all. And then when you run this ACM plugin, all of your search definitions get deployed. It's going to go a step further though. So in my case, I have list, and I'm basically going to deploy my PT portal registry and any of the asset management search indexes. Down here in this field, this admin operations, I can have it do a deploy and I can have it do an index. So what the index key says, it's going to go and create run controls, both incremental and full build run controls for every search index that I deploy. So if I were to list this as all, I would have now run controls for every single one of my search index that I'm going to deploy. I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's a huge time saver. Let's give this a try. Let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and execute. And so yes, behind the scenes, it is going to clean up my deployment data, which currently there is none. It is going to reconfigure the search instance now, and it's going to deploy all of my search definitions. So let's go home. I have my deploy delete object page here. And we're going to sort by deploy status. So you can see here I have my asset management search index deployed, and my PT portal registry is deployed. And you can see our crawl status says it is running. So if we go look at our process scheduler, we can see here I have my two PTSF gen feed processes running with just a click of a button. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty dang easy, and that simplifies a lot of things when managing your search indexes. So I mentioned that one of the cool things with this is you can handle refresh processing with this, and this is where I use this essentially every night without even touching the system. So we have a nightly environment that we refresh from production. Every night, 2 a.m. this happens. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that Elasticsearch is up and running in the environment in the morning when people show up. So in our ACM templates, I showed you that there's that search template that I used. We created a couple of new templates in there. We created one called DB name config for kind of like one-time, not one-time, operations that we can run over and over and over to make sure that our system stays in sync. We also have a refresh template, and this is one that does what I would say refresh type operations, things that might be somewhat destructive. So like undeploying search definitions and then redeploying them. That's not stuff you want to run, at will. That's stuff you want to run at a schedule. So what we do is we then execute our ACM plugin through just a command line call. So the ACM is an app engine behind the scenes. So you can just call it through PowerShell, a shell script, whatever you want. So our refresh happens at 2 a.m. and then we call the ACM at 4 a.m. to then configure Elasticsearch. So then every morning, our environment's up and ready to go. And I think that's pretty cool. There's also two other ways you can execute the ACM. You can insert a row into the process monitor tables so that when your scheduler starts, then it kicks off the ACM as well. And then you can also do it through deployment packages as well. That's just an option. All right. I'm going to move on. If you're more interested in that, you can contact us later. But I think that's a really cool way to simplify management with Elasticsearch.
Hey, Dan, you got one question if you want to cover this real quick.
Oh, yes.
All those different parameters and the different fields
Yes.
in the template, is there an easy way to maybe look at what is required or what those values might be?
Yes, so a lot of these values in here.
Correct.
I will say, and you might not hear this very often, this is actually pretty well documented in PeopleBooks.
Yes.
So if you go out to PeopleBooks, search ACM, and look at the different plugins, they actually list what the different options are. So if you have questions, kind of like I mentioned here in the search deploy search definition, you have different options here and here. Those are actually pretty well documented in PeopleBooks. So that's usually where I go.
There's also the current values and DB button, right? Is that?
Yes. Yes. So you click this button here, you can kind of see what, what was stored in the database at that time.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, good question. All right, let's change gears here. psadmin Plus. This is a tool that I use pretty much every day. And every time I use it, I just get giddy and excited because it's so simple and easy to use. So I got to give credit to Kyle for this. Kyle's the one that created it, even though I'm the one talking about it. psadmin Plus, or PSA, is basically a wrapper around the psadmin command. So if you've done any PeopleSoft administration, you're familiar with this, right? You want to go in and modify a domain, you launch psadmin, you hit a bunch of keystrokes to drill into your app server domain, maybe reconfigure it, clear cache, and then start it. It's a lot of keystrokes. What's great about psadmin Plus is you can combine multiple tasks into one command, and it's all one command. You're not opening psadmin and drilling down, or passing a bunch of parameters to try to figure out where to go. It's a lot easier than that. The other cool thing is it's open source, so you can view the code. If you have things you want to improve on it, you can take a look at that. If you want to tweak it for your environment, because we kind of built this based on focusing on how the pies work, but have added features to make it work with environments where we work. So it is fairly flexible, but maybe there's something that you want to tweak to it. You can go and look at that as well. It's pretty straightforward to use. There's a really good help menu on it. So if you just type PSA, it'll give you all of the usage options. Real quick, here's some examples. You can always do PSA help. If I log onto a box and let's say the machine rebooted for security patching and for whatever reason the domains didn't start, I can just do PSA start, and PSA will go out and find every domain on that box, web, app, batch, and start them all. Rather than having to go in and start different services or launch psadmin and hop between the domains, and start them. Nope, you can just do PSA start, and every domain that psadmin Plus can find, it will attempt to start. You can also kind of drill down. You could say, well, start all my web servers on this box, or maybe just start the HR dev web server as well. My favorite command that I use a bunch is PSA bounce, right? How many times have you had a request to go bounce the app servers because the developers made some changes and they think there's some cache issues, right? So the bounce command will stop the domain. It will clear the cache, and that includes web server cache if it's on a web server domain. For Tuxedo domains, it clears the IPC resources. On Tuxedo domains, it also reconfigures the domain, and then it will start it. So all of those different commands that you might have to do can just be done with a simple PSA bounce, and then you sit back and let the tool do the work. It's also really easy to install. It is a Ruby gem, so you're going to need Ruby, but if you've used the DPK at all, you already have Ruby on your system. The DPK is based on Puppet, which is based on Ruby. So it's pretty easy. You just make sure the Puppet bin is in your path, and then you just do a gem install psadmin Plus, and away you go. All right, let's go take a look at this. I think this is really cool in a demo here. So let me log into a box here. And all right, so here we have psadmin Plus. So I can do a couple of things. I can do PSA list, and this is going to show me all of the configuration options that psadmin Plus has in a set, as well as which domains it can find. Now, if you have multiple config homes or multiple domains in your config home, it's going to list all of those. There's also an option if you have multiple config homes on your box that you can tell it that, and it'll then crawl those as well. So there's a couple of things here that I really like about this. I mentioned you can do bounces. It'll start or stop, clear resources, start domains and things like that. On the web server as well, if you've ever had to bounce your web server and you're behind a load balancer, you probably want to try to pull that web server out of the load balancer pool, wait a period of time, then shut down your servers to get people to make sure their transactions finish. So one of the things that we've added here is the ability to modify a health check file. So you can see here out of the box, we just have health.html. So our load balancer just checks for this file. If it exists, then the web server is running. So, and then we also have a period of time that psadmin Plus will wait from when it removes that file to when it restarts the web server. So you can play with that as well. So for demo purposes, I'm going to have it wait 5 seconds. and then I can do PSA restart web. And what it will do is it will remove that health check file. It'll then wait however many seconds you've set to let the sessions clear out. And then it will go and restart my web server. I think that's pretty cool, right? I mean, how many times have we, wanted to reboot a web server, but it's like, oh, we have to go talk to the load balancer admins and make sure we get the pool drained or the transactions cleared out. Then we restart it, and then you have to talk about getting it added back in. Whereas you can use psadmin plus to kind of automate something like that. And there we go. Real quick, I'll just show you what a PSA bounce app. We'll do our process scheduler, PRCS DOM. So what this is going to do is it's going to stop our scheduler, clear the cache, clear the IPC resources. It's going to reconfigure. Oh, and it'd probably help if I spell the domain correctly.
I think you passed app instead of PRCS.
Well, that would make sense. It is not an app server. There we go. So it's going to do all of those actions here in the process scheduler with just a single command. And you can see how easy it is, just PSA, whatever action, the domain name, and away you go. All right.
We did have a question that came up here about Windows. You mentioned this is Ruby, right? Does this run on Windows with Ruby here?
Yes, it does. And so originally this was just a Linux thing, and we actually rewrote it in Ruby so it would be multi-platform. So yeah, I actually use it on Windows regularly as well, not just Linux. There are a couple of unique things with, oops, we got an error there, but that's all right. With Windows, when you deal with Windows services, so there's a feature in here, and it's in the documentations, there's this idea of Windows services. So you can kind of tell psadmin plus, do I interact primarily with the Windows services for starting or stopping? Or do I start and stop on my own and then just flip the service status to match what the domain is? So start using the tool and then go start the service afterwards to kind of trail and make that follow. So Windows, there's a little more involved with it, but it still works really well right out of the box.
And then the multi-home flag, have you used that recently? I've never really used that feature too much myself.
I primarily use that on Windows. I mean, it does work on both Windows and Linux, but I have used it on Windows because one of the places that I work, we use a multi-home setup versus a single config home on a box.
All right.
Well, cool. Well, Kyle, let me hand it back over to you. So let me make you the presenter here.
All right, let me just get my screen sharing here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started. What we want to do quickly here is I want to build a PeopleSoft server. I'm going to kind of jump into a demo like right away, kick something off, and then I'll take a step back and kind of talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes. So to build this PeopleSoft server, we've got a database up and running. That's what actually Dan was just demoing against on a different server. I want to add a new multi-tier or mid-tier server, so app, web, process scheduler. I'm going to add that on a brand new server in OCI from scratch. And to do that, we're going to use a Terraform module that Dan and I have been working on. And as well, that Terraform module is going to utilize a new utility that we're calling IOCO, or psadmin.io Cloud Operations Utility. So it's kind of going to help us kind of bootstrap the setup of all these PeopleSoft servers for us. So let's take a look here. So we'll jump into a demo. Of course, my session timed out, but I'll connect here. So what we're using here is the Cloud Shell in Oracle OCI console. If you are not familiar with that, it's pretty cool. You get like a little temporary VM to play around with, and it's tied directly into the OCI. So it's really cool. But first, what I'm going to do is jump into here, and I'm going to kick off a Terraform apply, and I'm going to reference a variable file, and I'm going to auto approve it. Okay, so in the background right now, we've got a Terraform that's applying some changes to our infrastructure, which includes a new instance, a new server, and that new server has some bootstrapping scripts waiting to go. So let's just take a look, make sure that that is running. Okay, so it's creating a bunch of stuff, and actually you can see right in the console here, it's provisioning a new PeopleSoft Summit server. So that instance is getting spun up right now. So while that's creating, I'd like to just take a second here to maximize this. I'd like to walk through what this Terraform module really is. So if you're not familiar with Terraform, it's basically infrastructure as code tool that basically lets you declare what you want your infrastructure to be, and it will go out and build that for you. OCI has a provider for that, so we can use Terraform to tell OCI what we want, and then Terraform just kind of instructs OCI through their API exactly what to build for us. So to use this repository, you have to clone it from GitHub, export some variables, create a variables file, and then do a Terraform apply. That's what we just basically did. So what I'd like to walk through quickly is, what is in the module itself. We've got a couple different Terraform files. So we're doing things like DNS setup or creating an instance. There's a lot of variables here. We can take a look at our example file here. This is the Terraform that we're applying. So since we have a module, we can just reference the module PS instance, and any kind of PeopleSoft instance we want to create in general, we can just leverage this module. Now, not every instance and server is going to be the same, right? We might want to change things. We might want to change its name. We might want to change the region it's in, or the compartment ID, subnet. That's all controlled by variables. So everything else, kind of in the detail of how this stuff gets created, that's kind of extrapolated away into the module, and we can just focus on these variables listed here. So when we go to apply, we'll point to this and say this is our configuration. Now, you can see like var.name, var.tenancy, var.region, where do those variables get set? That is going to be in our variables file. So Terraform has a convention. When you do an apply, you can reference a .tfvars file, and that's where we actually are going to set up our variables. So the name I picked was PeopleSoft Summit. It's going to be in availability domain 1. I've got a silver backup policy. There's my shape. So stuff like that. The thing I really want to point out, though, is the last line is our IOCO actions. So what we've built into the module is a way to, through this utility we built, kind of tell Terraform what to do once the instance gets created. The bootstrapping, I guess, mechanism to kind of do that is called cloud init. It's a pretty popular method of kind of bootstrapping these instances once they get provisioned. The last three commands you see there are parameters OCI, CEM, and DPK. Those are going to be controlled by this IOCO utility we created. So what's happening in the OCI, it's going to automatically set up our block storage. So we created a separate attached block storage for this server. It's going to do all that setup for us, create a partition, file system, stuff like that, mount it. Cloud Manager, we're going to actually attach our NFS DPK files mount directly to the machine once that gets spun up. So when we go to do our provisioning, we'll have access to all the DPK files downloaded from Cloud Manager. That happens automatically. We'll have access to those DPK files. And then lastly, DPK, that's going to actually deploy the DPK for us. For this example, again, we're doing a mid-tier deployment against a different database. So hopefully when this is all done, it'll just spin up automatically and we can connect to our application. So I think that's all I wanted to show for now. Let's see, actually, let's take a quick look at here. So, okay, so our image is now up and running. So that's good. Let me take a look. And, oh, okay, so it's all done. So that was quick. So when I say all done, that means the, that means the server is built, but it's still doing some cloud init provisioning for us. So if we log in real quick to the server, we can see that our server's up and running. And let me show you what's happening with tail F. So once the instance was provisioned, it automatically used this cloud init tool to kick off our utility, IOCO, and that's doing some setup here. So it's setting up our file system, it's installing our packages, it's getting those DPK files, and now it's running the DPK setup script right now already. So we'll check back on that later, and we'll see how far we get with the time allotted. But for now, let's talk about psadmin.io cloud operations, or IO Cloud Ops for short. We've been building this for a while, even before we had a name for it. It's kind of our preferred tool set and methodology for modern PeopleSoft deployment, specifically on cloud, OCI, and stuff like that. So it's old, reliable tools and methods for PeopleSoft administration that we've been using for a while. Tools that have been around for a while, like DPK, are some of our custom bolt-ons. We've got custom Puppet modules that work alongside the delivered DPK, and also the psadmin plus that Dan showed. So that's kind of in this umbrella here. But we also have some new things we're kind of excited about. Really working on these, day to day, as the more and more experience we get with cloud. There's new methodologies to kind of leveraging a cloud-first approach to PeopleSoft. Meaning, leveraging the cloud API and some of the tooling that comes with it. I mentioned the Terraform. OCI has a resource manager that kind of is another level to Terraform. They've got an SDK around their API so like tools like this Python utility can leverage that. Obviously, PeopleSoft delivers PeopleSoft Cloud Manager. That's another great tool for using PeopleSoft in the cloud. So all this is just kind of going to be packaged up in what we call, again, the IO Cloud Ops. So where this came from recently, at least, is a success story we had at St. Paul Public Schools. Both Dan and I have been working there since 2017 is actually when we started partnering with them. So back then they were on 852 tools. They had like a single PeopleSoft administrator, and we partnered with them to kind of get them up to speed for tools. So we upgraded them to 855 tools at the time. We kind of helped them with some automation for patching and using DPK and just general cleanup, because their goal was to move to the cloud. So we wanted to kind of get them at a good footing to move to the cloud. And we started at the time, this happened actually, the move happened in 2018 now. We moved all their non-prod to OCI Classic. And this was the start of some of these new methodologies we were exploring and trying out. The move to OCI Classic went pretty well, but St. Paul wanted to leverage the new cloud, the Gen 2 one, which I will say is much better than the OCI Classic.
It really is.
It really is. Dan can attest to that too, because Dan was kind of the point person last year, 2019, to move their non-prod from OCI Classic to OCI. And then most recently in May now, we've got them up in their production as well. So now all their PeopleSoft is running in OCI. And there was a kind of a couple different lift and shifts there. I think we've got them in a pretty good place now. We're so far pretty happy with how OCI has been running for production. So what we're trying to do now is kind of take a step back and say, okay, what went well, what didn't, and let's kind of get a general methodology in place on how to really run PeopleSoft in the cloud, specifically with OCI. this methodology, the idea for us that we have is we want to do more than just lift, shift, and leave. So lifting and shifting to the cloud it can be pretty straightforward. I think you can really kind of make a basic, just lift up what you have, move it to the cloud. That's fine if that's what you're after, but there's so many new opportunities with the cloud first approach to really leverage new tools and methods and how you manage your PeopleSoft that we really want to try to leverage as much as we can out of that. So part of this methodology is kind of trying to align with Agile, DevOps, infrastructure as code. Okay, I showed you some Terraform already. Like that's the type of stuff we really want to try to leverage because the cloud has a lot of tools and APIs that you can use to make your life easier. On top of that is monitoring notifications. So as you're building this stuff or as you're patching, as you're just kind of doing day-to-day operations, what's happening to your system. The cloud's got a lot of tools to do monitoring for you and notify you directly, whether it's the PagerDuty stuff or just emails. If you want to get into kind of the chat ops stuff, you can do that with some of these notifications that OCI has built in. And I think lastly, as you're kind of designing this, we've got some ideas on how to best use compartments, tags, to really get a good deployment strategy to fit in a budget. And there's budget tracking tools as well. So if you're interested in talking to us more about this, you can go to psadmin.io/OCI. And we can have a conversation of what we've been up to recently. So besides just the methodology, that's all well and good. The cool, nerdy stuff here is the utility. And this is what we've been really working on the last month or so, wrapping up different things that we've pulled out from different tools and really putting it into kind of one utility that was just going to work well for us in the cloud. And that's the IOCO utility. So what it is, it's written in Python. It's a utility for common tasks related to administering PeopleSoft in the cloud. And it's out in GitHub, I think as of yesterday, psadmin/-io/IOCO. You can go check it out. It's still, I will say, early days. This demo is working with it, but it's got some work to do to really take this to prod. And we're trying to work on this, make it useful and share it. So definitely keep an eye on that as more time passes here. This is, again, the help menu, similar to the psadmin Plus tool. There's a help menu. The usage is you basically just say IOCO, and then we've got different groupings of different commands. So for OCI specific things, that'll be IOCO OCI. As mentioned, there's a block command. When you attach storage to an instance, you got to do things like make the file system, so partition it, pick your file system, and then actually mount it so you can use it. This utility can just do that automatically for you with these commands. I really like the idea of leveraging that DPK files repository that Cloud Manager has that uses the file storage service, FSS. So we can automatically attach that to all our instances. So we have got access to DPKs directly from that versus having to kind of download them directly from MOS every time or pass that stuff around. Cloud Manager's already done all that work, so let's leverage that, and that attaches it automatically. So as soon as that instance spins up, it's just there, ready to go. And then lastly, the DPK deploy is the big one. So if we want to just spin up the latest finance image, that's the command right there. You just put that into your Cloud init script, and when the instance gets created, it runs that, pulls it from the Cloud Manager repo, and installs it. There's some defaults associated with that, obviously. I'll show you in a bit here how we can change that and configure that. But it can do, full application builds. It can do things like the tools. So what we're demoing here is just a mid-tier deployment. So it can do quite a bit, actually. And it's pretty handy. So we're liking the way it's looking so far. Installing it, it's pretty straightforward. GitHub, just clone it, and then you can start using it. I will say there is like 2 Python dependencies there. In the future, we do plan on publishing this on the Python package index. So the pipe install IOCO, and you're off and running. That's in the future. All right, so I think we've got 5 minutes left. Let me hop back over to my shell, and we're still running the DPK script here. I wasn't expecting this to finish because it does take some time. Let's see if I lost my shell. Hello, connection interrupted. I'd like to reconnect, please. All right, so while this is reconnecting, again, check us out, psadmin.io/OCI. If you want to have a more in-depth conversation about PeopleSoft on cloud, we'll gladly do that for you. So what I'm going to do, if I can, hey, there we go. Let's see. I want to connect quickly, as fast as I can type. Back into my instance. And what I want to show you is the IOCO configuration file. So part of our Cloud Init deployment script, again, runs the IOCO utility, but what's controlling that is all done in a JSON configuration file. So I'm actually telling it, I want a Linux platform DPK. I want to pull it from the source of Cloud Manager. The type is tools. So I don't want a full tier database setup or of an application. I just want the mid tier. I can specify the patch level, tools level. This is telling what disk I want to use for my attachment. There's my secure passwords are right there. Exporting the Cloud Manager there, and there's the NFS host for it. So all these, the configuration and parameters, you can maybe pass to it through command line, but you can also pass through it through a JSON config file, and it'll automatically kind of find that. So
here's one thing that, Kyle, that I think it's worth pointing out. So
yeah.
with so the demo that Kyle is showing here is he's actually attaching to the repository that Cloud Manager populated. So we have a Cloud Manager instance up and running, and if you know, one of the features of Cloud Manager is that when new patches or new pies come out, it automatically downloads them. So the IOCO utility can just attach your Cloud Manager storage and use that as a repository. And it can also go out, connect to Moss with your Moss credentials and download the patches. But why do that when you have all the Cloud Manager doing that work for you?
Exactly. So you can see here, I just showed you this is the mount that Cloud Manager uses. I've got two images actually, 36 and 37. So if I wanted to build 36 instead of 37, I could pass in 36, and it would actually, as long as I had it downloaded, it would actually deploy that. Now, if you don't specify an image, it just automatically pulls the latest. Same with the tools patching there. I've got the 858 repository folder showing, and they've got different patch levels. So if the latest is patch 6, but you guys are stuck on patch 3 for now, you can specify that, and that's what I did. So the other thing is in the custom directory, there is the stuff like COBOL, infrastructure DPK that gets stored there too. So again, Cloud Manager does all this work for us. If we want to manage our PeopleSoft environments ourselves and not really fully use Cloud Manager to do all the deployment for us, we can kind of do the best of both worlds. Cloud Manager could just even be there just for a DPK repository if we want, and then we can leverage it with our own deployments that way. So, so I've got 2 minutes left. Was there any questions, Dan, that really popped up, or anything else you think I forgot to show?
Oh, you know, I've been kind of answering the passwords for those of you that have been asking them, since we're kind of running low on time. No, I think this is great, Kyle. Like you said, I mean, we're excited about this tool, and the utility is great, but the utility is the thing that's more embodies and kind of codifies what we've found to be kind of some of the really good ways to implement PeopleSoft on Oracle Cloud. So while it has some really neat things, it's kind of it's a tool in a bigger picture is kind of the big piece of it.
Still not done. Okay. Yeah, well, thanks everyone. I think that's all the time we have. Again,
yeah, we'll hand it
got
back to
the slide here. This is more information. So if you want to check us out, feel free. Outside of that, I'll probably hand it back to the Appsian team.
Yeah,
cool.
Scott.
Thanks a lot, Kyle, Dan, appreciate it. Certainly appreciate you guys presenting today. I would definitely encourage everyone to reach out to Dan and Kyle, learn more about what they're doing with PS Admin. Every presenter today and yesterday was handpicked, so I know you guys will see a lot of benefit with engaging with those guys. So lastly, I would like to mention that future PeopleSoft Innovation Summits are currently being planned. And we need your help to better understand the content that you want to see moving forward. So we'll be sending out a survey tomorrow, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback on that. So keep an eye out, please. And we would also like to encourage you to follow Appsian on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's where you'll probably get the first information about future events. And of course, you can find us at www.appsian.com. And up next, we're going to continue talking about Oracle Cloud Infrastructure with Secure and Modernize PeopleSoft on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. That's going to be with Astute Business Solutions here in about 15 minutes. So if you haven't registered for that, please feel free to do so and stick around. We'll be right back. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
My build worked. Just in time. Thanks, everyone.